Welcome to the Medicines for Children podcast. In this series, we're talking to those with a specialist knowledge of living with epilepsy. I'm Eva, a medical student and a member of the Medicines for Children team, and today's episode features a conversation I had with Fiona, a young person with epilepsy, and her mum, Karen, about how the condition has impacted their lives and the adaptations they have made along the way. So how old were you when you were first diagnosed?
About 11 and a half.
Okay, that's quite old actually, isn't it? And most people are diagnosed a bit younger than that.
Yeah.
How was it for you when you were first diagnosed? How did the two of you find it?
I hated it. I thought it was the end of the world, knowing that she's got this condition, and obviously I'm a slightly older parent and there's all these weird and wonderful connections with epilepsy, like, oh, she must be mad, or way back in the Bible, she's possessed, all that type of stuff. And obviously, how's this going to affect her future? Which it has, because it has affected her education. Between puberty and the epilepsy, it really seriously affected her education. And it's the fact that she doesn't have any visible triggers. She doesn't know herself when she's going to have one. And I can only tell if I'm in the vicinity of her that she's going to have one. And also what I don't like is that you're moseying along and everything's fine, and then wham bam, away she goes again and she has another one, and you feel so bad for her. And I hate it, I really do hate it. And I told her I was going to say this, but at the end of the day, we're coping. We've learnt to cope with it. How, I don't know. I think just matter of fact, we've got used to it, we know what to do, and I'm much more open about it with colleagues and other people, whereas at the start, because of people's perceptions of epilepsy, I never said a word. And Fiona was much, much more open. She's always been brilliant about it, whereas I've hidden it until, maybe the last 4 years.
So
really?
You kind of managed to
really
talk yourself into being used to it, because at the beginning you blamed yourself for it.
I thought I'd done something wrong when I was pregnant.
Or dropped me on my head as a baby. No, that would probably have been Daddy that did that. But yeah, my mum kind of blamed herself, and then I used to like come out of it and she'd be like crying and stuff. So, and then I would feel bad.
But we've got over that.
And I made a PowerPoint because I started having them primary 7, and first year was quite bad as well for having them. I made a PowerPoint, and then in front of my whole year, I said, like, I was talking about, I did a presentation and explained what would happen, the different kinds of seizures that people get, how everybody's epilepsy is different to them. Like my brother's got epilepsy as well, but his is the photosensitive one. He's only ever had 2, so he's quite lucky.
So how does epilepsy affect when you travel? Is it okay on planes? Is there anything that you've got to do in particular?
Travelling's fine. Obviously travel insurance is expensive.
Between all of us.
Because I have to pay a wee bit more.
I'm sorry about that one.
It tends to, they are quite good. They are quite good in a way, because they tend to base it on how many seizures you've had in the last, say, 3 or 6 months. So if we're lucky and she's only had 1, it's probably cheaper.
Thanks a bunch.
Whereas if she's had 4 or 5, it might be a bit more expensive. But she travels fine, and she's never ever had anything on a bus or a train or a plane, touch wood. And
it tends to be before or after.
I hate saying that. It's like folks saying, and how's Fiona doing it? And I hate saying, because I'm always that wee bit superstitious at the back of your mind, which is totally ridiculous.
Because of that one time.
You're scared to say it, that she's doing fine, in case she has a seizure the next day or something like that. Because it happened once, and you're like that, oh.
So you're saying that you're still having seizures at the moment, or it's still not completely under control. So talk me through how you found the right medication for you, or how you're finding the right medication for you.
still trying to find the right one. I've been on 5 or 6 different medications.
And she's on a combination of 2 at the moment. Reasonably high doses. Not on the one that she's not on the one that would affect if she was pregnant.
The reproductive one.
So she hasn't ever been on that one.
That's what they
but she's tried everything else. But she's got an appointment with the epilepsy nurse next month. So she's back in the care of back up here in the care of the Queen Elizabeth, the neurology department there. So they're good at keeping in touch with her. And I think they're quite happy to leave it as it is because you're not having that many at the moment.
No.
But she's still having about maybe 4 to 5 a year, which is a lot better.
I get more during see when like last year and the year before when I had more tests, seemed to get worse during that. So my mum thinks it might be stress related.
No, I don't think it is stress related because she can be sitting watching the television in the house and she can have one. I don't know. We just cannot pinpoint
what's causing
what
it.
Sets her off. She can be lying in bed watching the television. She can be sitting downstairs watching the television. We could be sitting talking.
Or I can be at the top of the stairs.
But I do know that she does have them when she is a wee bit under stress.
Or not
but
well.
She did talk to, what was she did again? A clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist?
No, a clinical psychologist. We went to that one when it was really bad.
When it was really, really bad, she was also having it was like fake seizures. It was like flop, flight, freeze, that type of thing. And she was referred a doctor at the
Queen Elizabeth,
at the Children's Hospital, and she gave her coping mechanisms. So she's got a whole raft of coping mechanisms to try and deal with the stress. But if we knew what caused it, life would be a lot easier and we'd avoid it.
Or would be able to manage it better.
But 3, 4, 5 a year is manageable compared to what it was.
And after I've had them, it's always, I want my mum. My mum says, I want my mum. I can be sitting next to my dad and he can be like, it's okay, Fiona. And I'm like, I want my mum. And you're at work or something.
Oh, that's lovely in a way. In day-to-day life, just sort of any average Tuesday, is there anything that you feel like you've got to do differently to maybe your friends or your siblings because of your epilepsy?
No, I just make sure I've got my phone with me in case I have one, and I've got my mum and dad had you get those medical alert chains and medical alert bracelets and everything. My mum and dad had one of them made for me, and because you can get them made, you don't have to have them. I can't think. My dad's got one for his heart, but they had one made and it's got in case of emergency, so it's got my dad's mobile number on it 'cause my mum's at work. So if I did have one, then they'd know to call my dad.
Do you think it helps you feel like a bit more independent so you can go out with your friends and you don't have to worry about people not knowing?
Oh no, I'm very open. If I'm going out with someone, I tell them, I've got epilepsy. If I have a seizure, don't panic. But I know that when people see it the first time, they will freak out. Because when I first saw my brother, my dad said I was in a fit of tears because I freaked out because I thought, oh my gosh, this must be what I look like. This is terrifying. It's scarier than you think. See, when you see someone else have one, it's so scary.
But see, it wouldn't scare me now. What I would say though is that if she ever went out into a flat on her own, I would make sure I got as much. You know how you can get special equipment like kettles that you don't need to pick up, tip and tilt and pour. I'd make sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'd make sure she had stuff like that.
Epilepsy friendly stuff.
Epilepsy friendly stuff, yeah.
It's really good they do things like that, actually. Like, I didn't realise that they had so many things that were like epilepsy safe.
Yeah, I don't know where I found it. I don't know if it was something the hospital gave us or the epilepsy nurse gave us, but that stuck in my mind.
It might be in one of the information leaflets they gave
And I
us.
thought that was a really, really good idea, because obviously if you've picked up a boiling hot kettle and you decide you're going to have a seizure, you're running the risk of giving yourself bad burn, because she had a kind of spaced out one. She didn't have a seizure, she just had like an absence, I would have said. And when she came out of it, the pot handle, it wasn't on fire or anything like that. But
no,
you know,
it was on fire.
It was on fire.
It was on fire.
But the kitchen was reeking. But she knew what to do. So that's the only thing. So I'd make sure she had a smoke detector.
So now in college, but also back when you were in school, so every day, was there any changes that your school made for you to try and like adapt to your epilepsy or anything that? Because I know that you said that you did the presentation for your schoolmates. That's really cool. But is there anything that you had to change or they changed for you to make life a bit easier?
Separate accommodation for exams and tests and everything, and that was about it. Because I was very open, if someone saw me have one, they would get someone to...
And most of the teachers...
Get a teacher, and all the teachers knew, because up here you get made a seizure plan, like an epilepsy seizure plan, so it will explain the protocol for it, what to do, what the seizures may look like, that kind of thing.
That is so clever. So your teachers would have that and they'd know what to do if they saw you have a seizure?
Yeah, the school got a copy of that and college got a copy of that and we've got a copy of that as well.
The only thing was, you know how you get the high stools for the science benches?
Yeah, that was not safe.
They couldn't do anything about that, so Fiona decided to have a seizure during science and fall off the high stool.
I got a big bump on the back of my head for that one.
But
at least it wasn't home ec though.
But apart from that, that's the only thing, because they couldn't really, you can't have a small seat, a science bench when you're doing experiments, because it just doesn't work. But
hey, at least it wasn't a day when we were like setting stuff on fire.
But the really good
Yeah.
The really good thing about it was our pupil support teacher was excellent. He was really good, because alongside the epilepsy we also had this like fake epilepsy, the fake seizures which she diagnosed with, like flight, fear,
that fight or flight
response, but we didn't know there was a flop response, and Fiona would just flop, but it was like mimicking a seizure, but it wasn't a seizure. So between that, the seizures, puberty, and the medicine, it was like
hell on earth.
It was quite a torrid time, I would say, 3rd, 4th year.
Yeah.
So when she was like 14, 15, 16-ish, that really, really affected her academically, because she missed so much school, and then there was times she wasn't keen on going into school. Yeah, it wasn't a good time, but much, much better now. And I think the fact the medication has changed and she's matured a bit now. That's
just a bit.
Well, I don't mean in terms of you're still maturing, but you're not in puberty anymore. Do you know what I mean?
You know what? That age is horrible anyway. I hated being 14, 15. So the fact that you were doing that and going through epilepsy, getting the right treatment, having these like pseudo seizures, I think that's just amazing that you managed to figure it all out.
She had a couple of stays in the hospital where she was wired up.
And I never had one.
Well, you had one, one wee one, but...
Do you ever find that when you tell people about your epilepsy, do you ever feel that they don't understand what it means, or they have like misconceptions about what epilepsy is?
I think nowadays there's a better understanding, and
younger people will know.
Younger people are probably more tolerant with it, but I think part and parcel of it is because it's not visible. It can be a wee bit, what do you mean? But
I think people are like, there's nothing wrong with you.
I think perceptions are changing and people are more epilepsy aware, but I still think we need to get the message out into the schools more, and that's what they're going to be working on at the weekend.
Okay, so I know that you're doing stuff for Epilepsy 12. Can you just tell me a little bit about, firstly, why you got into it and just what it is? What's the job of Epilepsy 12?
Well, I got into it because I've done stuff like this before, like, I'm trying to think what I did. Can you remember?
Somebody asked you if you were interested in joining this epilepsy youth group.
Yeah.
And we said,
but we didn't know how we'd get into the Epilepsy 12 thing because it's normally, because it's everywhere else but Scotland. But yeah, and I've been enjoying being part of this as well because it's nice to talk to other people who know what you're going through. Because like you can talk to your friends and stuff, but they might not understand. Might not like understand fully how it feels to be the person with epilepsy. They'll know what it's like to see a seizure, but they won't know what it's like to be the one having it. Because for them it might be scary, but for me it's terrifying because I don't know what's going on or why it's happening or anything like that. So what we're going to be like discussing and everything is school plans for epilepsy care. So how to explain it to schools and make awareness and raising awareness in school about epilepsy, and then the mental health for like people with epilepsy. Like their mental health can be quite bad. I remember how horrible I felt and stressed and everything I was like, but when we went to see the clinical psychologist, my mental health got a lot better.
So did mine.
I know you're talking about seeing the psychologist. So just talk me through what members of your healthcare team that you see quite a lot. Because I know it's the epilepsy nurse, but just talk me through who sort of you see when you go for an appointment.
It tends to be the epilepsy nurse we get our appointments with.
How often do you see her?
How often do we see her? Well, when did we speak to her? We spoke
last year.
No, we spoke to her.
Beginning of the year?
Spoke to her in August.
Yeah.
We spoke to her in August. Well, I actually initiated that call because Fiona at that point was having a couple, which was a bit unusual, and I just wanted to make sure we were doing the right thing. And from that, I think there's maybe a team of epilepsy nurses up in Glasgow at the Queen Elizabeth. So we found out who our actual epilepsy nurse is, and she's got her first appointment with her next month. And the consultant is probably, well, since she only really re-registered last year, so we've only spoken to the consultant once. No face-to-face yet. So it'll be quite good when you get a face-to-face because
you get to know them better.
You get to know the person better, and you just can build up a better relationship.
Yeah.
Well, they can read your body language as well, which is a big help.
Yeah.
Rather than just
you're coming with me
over the phone. Or face-to-face.
When we get face-to-face, you're coming with me.
If I get a face-to-face one, I'll go because I'd quite like to meet the person. But
she writes everything down. She writes the dates and all that down.
I write the dates of the seizures and how long they last and what she's like when she comes out.
Probably where it happened and all.
It's quite funny because I've got, I don't know if everybody's got their own wee routine, but once she's finished season, whatever you want to call it, she's always quite tired and she's still a bit confused. So I keep going, what's your name?
Or what's my name?
What's your name? And she go, Fiona. Fiona what? And when she can tell me her name, I know she's okay. And then it's usually, I need the toilet or I'm going to bed.
Tends to be I'm going to bed.
But when she decides what she's doing, it's very difficult to stop her from doing it. Like I'm always concerned that if she stands up suddenly she's a bit wobbly, but oh my God, the strength she has when she comes out of it for that 5 minutes or so, it's very hard to change her direction and like try to stop her from going up the stairs to her bed. Just lie here. No, I'm going to bed. And you're like that. Right, I'm coming up the stairs at the back of you so you don't fall down the stairs. So we do have a bit of a laugh about it now.
Yeah.
We can, but initially I couldn't. There was no way in this earth I could have had a laugh.
Mm.
And I don't think your dad's as relaxed as I am now.
No.
He
still kind of freaks out a little bit.
He's still a bit, oh my God, it's happening. Whereas I just go, here we go again.
She does.
Don't I? Here we go again.
Or you're like, Fiona, really? Again? After I've woken up after a couple of hours of sleep, it's like, Fiona, did you really have to do that? You were doing so well.
But it's banter, it's not
It's not
blaming
it's not being mean. She's just trying to make me laugh after I've been asleep for a couple of hours. And then I can't sleep at the night. Don't really sleep well that night after I've had one.
And then you're always quite hungry because sometimes you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it makes you sick. But we know what to deal with. I keep coming back to, see if I knew what triggered it, life would be a bit easier, I think. Yeah. It's the
not knowing why it's not knowing,
and then going along quite nicely with nothing happening, and then bang, away she goes.
Like we got to like 9 months or something.
Oh, with 9 months at one point, which was amazing. But I think the most we've had just now is maybe about 3.5 months. But that's more manageable than what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
You are both just so chilled out as well, and you can tell that you just like bring a bit of humour to it, which just is so human. It's lovely to hear.
I think
you just kind of have to, because otherwise you'd just be so upset and so stressed.
No, I don't think you have to. Well, not for me.
It helps if you can just kind of get through it.
It's taken me a long time to get to this stage. Whereas you've always been
very open. I had one in Tesco in NC.
Oh.
And obviously someone had called an ambulance. And
which we don't do because we know the seizure pattern. But obviously they'd phoned an ambulance and both Fiona
one of my friends had said to me once we got back and I'd had a sleep and they'd come through to check on me a couple of hours later, said, Fiona, you were really rude to the ambulance, to the paramedics. What would they say? And I got told, I said, don't want to go, I want my bed. One of my friends had been and done my shopping for me as well, which was quite nice, but I felt so bad. But they'd said to the paramedics, it's fine, she has epilepsy, she's had them before, she just needs to sleep, she'll be fine.
So it wasn't one of the group that phoned an ambulance, it must have been a customer of the store who'd phoned the ambulance. So we know, like obviously in college and school knew not to phone an ambulance because that was part of the epilepsy plan unless it went on longer than normal or she was coming out of it and going back into all the usual stuff, all the information you get. So I think she was a bit short. I'm not going to hospital.
I don't want to go. I want my bed.
She just wanted her bed because that's generally what she wants to do. She wants to go to sleep and
kind of
sleep's the best recovery, and it takes anything from, I would say, 24 to 48 hours
to be back
to be back fully back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Depending what normal is with you. I thought I'd just add that wee bit.
I don't like you anymore. I'm not talking to you.
She says she's not talking to me now. So, what else do you want to know? I can't think of anything else.
I would love to keep you forever, but I will let you go. But just before I let you go, I just want to ask if you have any advice that you'd give to other people with epilepsy or their families or people who've just been diagnosed, anything that you'd like to say for them.
Don't be like me. Don't hide it.
Don't stress yourself out about it either. Mate, if you're struggling with it, try to at least be open with your family about how you're feeling. It helps. It took you forever to get, oh no, please don't cry, Mum.
I just felt
alone.
I didn't support her enough at the start because
you couldn't understand it yourself.
I couldn't deal with it, and being that wee bit older, there's all, as I said before, about the madness and the possession and stuff like that. And I know perceptions have changed, and I think it's all about, I never spoke to anybody maybe I should have done. And I would say, if it's a diagnosis and it comes out the blue, which it does, speak to as many people as you can to get the reassurance that, 1, you haven't done anything wrong. 2, you're not at fault, you didn't do anything when they were in the womb. And 3, just talk. Because talking helps.
Even if it's just like your friend or a family member, or even if it's just like
I've got a best friend that I went to college with, and it took me ages before I could fully open up to her, and that was my best friend. So I think if you're struggling, get as much information as you can. But
don't go online and look up random things.
No, don't.
Definitely talk to
people who are in the same situation as yourself.
Like, I'm on a couple of epilepsy groups on Facebook as well, so if you can do that, that's helpful as well. So you know that you're not the only one going through it, and talk to the person with the epilepsy, if it's your son or daughter, your parent, whatever. Talk to them.
But you don't know anything about it.
I don't know anything about it, but I'm still here for you, Mum. I still love you.
I love it because she knows nothing about having a seizure.
Know nothing about it, but after seeing my brother, I can understand it. It's terrifying. For the first or second time, it is terrifying.
I think a parent who's experienced that needs reassurance, and that they'll eventually find their own way of dealing with it and recognising. Hopefully, if their child is diagnosed, their child will have a trigger and the parents will be able to recognise it. But if you're in an unfortunate situation like us, you just have to find coping mechanisms and how to deal with it. And
try to keep going.
I think we're there. It's been a long journey, but I think we're there. I would say we've gone through hell and we've come out the other side.
Mostly.
Well, I've come
mostly
through,
intact.
I've come through hell and come out the other side because I can cope, I can deal with it, and that's it. We just get on with life. Everyday life's just normal.
Maybe change slightly, or your path might change,
tweak it a wee bit. But hey ho, we get on with it.
We're still going. We're still alive. Here. That's the main thing.
We're still here. We're still a family unit and everything like that. So that's good. So, also, it's quite good because we're Scottish.
Hell yeah.
And I think sometimes everything's down south, etc. So it's quite nice to have been able to be part of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. On behalf of the Medicines for Children team who commissioned this podcast series on epilepsy, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Fiona and her mum Karen for sharing their experiences with us so openly today, and also a big thank you to our brilliant medical student Eva for doing such a great job at interviewing. We hope that hearing a bit about Fiona and her family's experience of living with epilepsy will be really helpful for other young people and their families who might be going through similar experiences. If you'd like more information on what other episodes are available in this series on epilepsy, please subscribe to the RCPCH podcasts. Or for more resources and information on medicines for epilepsy, please visit our website, which provides a wealth of information for parents and families, available at www.medicinesforchildren.org.uk. On here we have information sheets for the 20 most commonly prescribed medicines for epilepsy. If you find that your child's medicine is not on this list, please let the team know by emailing us at medicines.leaflets@rcpch.ac.uk. Thank you again for listening.